So welcome everybody to our June monthly meeting. So if for those of you, a reminder for those of you, apparently David has one in his hand, but there's beverages over here. So if you want to join us next time, you can have beverages. And so today we're going to, if my clicker works, apparently it doesn't work. Second.
Let me just.
Why doesn't it work?
This is a Microsoft product.
You're pretty funny. It's not a Microsoft product, this thing. It's a Logitech. Anyway, so welcome everybody again. So on the agenda today, we have Bluewave-ai. So Dev is going to talk to us about Bluewave-ai, and we're hoping we'll talk about the pilot project with Hydro Ottawa and what's happening there. And then we'll do some EVX project updates. So quite a few changes since last month. So we'll update you on that. Then Mike will take us through the EV news as he does usually. Then we'll do past and future events. And of course, after that, we'll have a roundtable, right? So Mike, are you destroying my computer there?
No, I'm trying to get it so I can mute people.
Okay. So can you? So we'll take it off the presentation so that we can see faces. Okay, we'll stop sharing.
What?
Talk about Bluewave-ai.
Okay, how do I? Oh, we just need to slide up. It's fine.
You could click on share there.
Come on.
There we go. And now it should not be sharing, so people should be able to see our lovely faces on the app. So Dev, if you want to come up. Fantastic. And talk to us about Bluewave-ai and what you're doing with not just the Ottawa Hydro thing, but there's other stuff you want to talk about. Just
sure.
Feel free.
So thanks everyone for having me here today from Bluewave-ai. Just to get myself organized. How long do we have to talk about Bluewave?
As much as you want, actually. So
let's say that would be dangerous. Okay, so how about this? What I'll do is I'll give you folks some background into Bluewave-ai, like what the company, like why did we start this company, and what we're trying to do at a big picture level. And from that, we'll explain how what Bluewave is doing supports the electrification of society, and what our platform, how it's being built to enable utilities and users to basically onboard more electric vehicles into the grid. Then we'll close off with the first project that we have on the go with Hydro Ottawa. And I could maybe start it off by saying, before I started Bluewave, I was in, like many people in the Ottawa tech industry, I was in networking and semiconductors and kind of the whole telecom side of things. And we always had to go to get early adopter customers in Taiwan and Sweden and Germany, but very rarely in the Canadian market. So we're kind of thankful that for this particular project, we've got like Hydro Ottawa next door. But let me back it up a bit. So if you think about all the discussion around renewable energy in like adopting more wind and solar, everyone who's kind of a bit against says, well, you never get, it's always available at the wrong time. When the wind blows, we don't need it. It's in the middle of the night, you know. When the sun shines, it's great, but then a cloud comes over and you don't have the right amount of solar energy. So you always have like standby, like peakers with natural gas and other dispatchable energy when you need it, right? And all of you as EV users know that, you know, having energy that's dispatchable at your command is, without that, you can't run an electric vehicle because you need energy in your car. And thanks to Rockefeller and others, oil-based energy is everywhere, right? So in the 1800s, Standard Oil set up a whole network of gas stations around the US, initially not for vehicles, right? That was set up for home heating and home lighting. Before there was electricity from the grid, Rockefeller got rich basically bringing oil to every corner of the USA. And eventually, the Sherman Antitrust Act basically came into effect to break up Standard Oil, which became a monopoly in the US market. And then 7 companies were formed, one of which became Exxon, which is Standard Oil New Jersey, basically. And then eventually Exxon became the world's most valuable company. And all of that is based on delivering refined petroleum to every corner. And then fast forward from the early the mid 1800s, now you fast forward to Henry Ford. And basically the mass adoption of transportation that didn't use a horse and buggy. And basically you had Exxon already pre-positioned to service that whole, democratization of transportation. And that's how the whole automotive industry's been running like basically forever. And that's how the world geopolitics has been running basically forever. And so now let me explain giving some context, which is obvious to all of you, but I think it'll provide some lead into why we're doing Bluewave. So in 2006, I was on the Big Island in Hawaii, and I was participating in there's a sporting event called Hawaii Ironman in the Big Island of Hawaii, and they built their first wind farm on the island of Kona. It's in a town called Hawi, which basically is wind. And and the far end of the bike course, you actually bike through a wind farm, which isn't like the perfect place to ride a bike. You can barely stay upright. And then later in the day, 100 miles or so into the day, 120 something miles into the day, you're running through what's called the Natural Energy Lab. It's in the Hawaii Ocean Science and Technology Park. And they were doing all kinds of testing of different types of new solar panels and concentration of solar and all of that. So one moment I'm going through the wind farm, the next moment I'm going through the solar farm, completely fatigued, and your mind starts wandering. And then I was thinking, wow, these guys are doing something like really good, interesting. The people working on this are working on something very interesting for their lives, to impact humanity, but specifically on that island of Hawaii, they're not attached to any grid. So where was their electricity coming from? Well, guess where it's coming from? Coal. Not even coal most of the time, is coming just from oil. And so Hawaii started adopting more wind and more solar, and they're kind of being on the front edge of a high penetration renewable, non-dispatchable renewable market. And they have no connection to any neighboring grids to get electricity from. So they've had this problem of like the wind going all over the place, the solar going all over the place, their load fluctuating through the day, and how does the utility balance all of that off? And I started thinking about that, and I was like, you know what? If you got wind farms all over the place, you got solar all over the place. Like, who's the eyes and the ears of all of that to figure out what's coming? We had all these concepts, and luckily for us, here in the Canadian market, there was a place that's very much like Hawaii, in Prince Edward Island, a town called Summerside, who adopted solar and wind and battery storage, and they had diesel backup. They had their local energy consumption from their town, and they have a grid connection to mainland Canada to ND Power. But they had this goal to move to a fully renewable energy tech, and how to smooth all of that out. So we had the opportunity to work with them and basically automate, like, how much is coming from solar, how much is coming from wind, how much energy does the town need, balance all of that off, use the battery storage to smooth it out, and then get the cheapest. Why I'm talking about all of this in the EV context is the challenge with renewable energy is it's not there at exactly when you need it. Okay, so now think about it this way. If you read all the stories in the industry, in the newspapers and all that, like, the problem with renewable energy is storage is too expensive. So we sat around and we said, wait, hang on for a second. Solving the problem of storage gets solved for us with all of the folks who are onboarding electric vehicles into the grid. Because what's an electric vehicle? It's a moving battery as far as energy is concerned. And that moving battery takes energy from the grid. Now, if on aggregate, we can push the fluctuating renewable energy into, on aggregate, the electric vehicles and smooth out the grid by incentivizing, doing whatever we have to do to offtake the renewable energy when it's available into a mass adoption of electric vehicles. Now we're getting into, in quotes, utility scale storage. So if you look at it from the angle of the grid, one EV doesn't change anything. Hundreds or thousands of EVs suddenly become this huge, it's a huge challenge for the grid to get the right energy to all of our EVs at the right time. But it's a big revenue opportunity for the electricity utilities if they don't have to upgrade all of their capital, their poles and wires and all that. But it also services as a large-scale storage for onboarding more renewables, if you can get it all matched up. So when, unfortunately, when the war in Ukraine started, and you know, in Western Europe, they're like, look, we're dependent on Russian natural gas for our energy supply, for our electricity. Like, all that electricity peaking, dispatchable energy is from natural gas, or a lot of it is. And coal was decommissioned in a large scale, so there's that dependence on that natural gas supply. So if you want to onboard more wind energy offshore, it just adds to the problem unless you have a corresponding amount of storage. So you can quickly start seeing how all the EVs on aggregate are actually an asset to the grid. So I met with this lady, Laura Richardson, who works at Hawaii Electric 3 years ago, and talking about the problem. So what happens in the Big Island of Hawaii? They go from an energy load of 180 megawatts down in the middle of the day because of all the behind the meter solar. They go down as low as 30 megawatts, right in the middle of the day when the energy use is high. There's so much behind the meter solar generation that they go down to 30. And then you go into the afternoon and the sun starts getting lower and everyone goes home and the air conditioning load goes to its peak. And then they shoot back up to 180. And she was saying, if we can use the EVs, they become an asset for us. But if we can't use the EVs, they're going to kill us. Because if on top of that 180 megawatts in the evening, if everyone drives their Ford F-150 and their Tesla and starts plugging in at the end of the day, this becomes a spiraling out of control problem for the utility. So it'd be, we're on the one hand, we're really looking forward to the EVs coming on board, but we have to create a system so that they're our friend, not our enemy. And so in the fall of where I'm going with this now is leading into the project with Hydro Ottawa. So Lutz and the rest of our team, we've been building this platform that on the one hand can predict renewable energy using cloud computing, sensors, assets, IT systems across grids around the world, and balance it off as much as possible with what the electricity load is. And so the next thing that happens is as the EV proliferation goes up, we decided we should add this as a platform into, as an entity into our platform. Each individual EVs or EV fleets, because it's part of the electricity system load. So we started talking with Hydro Ottawa, and Guillaume Paradis, who is the chief of operations at Hydro Ottawa, he's like, yeah, you know, we did a lot of investigation behind the meter solar on private batteries that people might buy for backup. But that doesn't, in Ottawa, that doesn't really transform our grid because there's not enough incentive for the individual consumer, unless they're very environmentally friendly, to adopt sufficient, you know, rooftop solar and get the battery storage. But if we have just a few streets with an overload of EVs, that starts becoming a problem at the distribution system level. And then on aggregate, if we go further across the city and the penetration becomes high enough, we don't want to have a problem with our distribution system. So they commissioned us to do an analysis, and our team of data scientists looked at different loops in the city and that had EVs on them. And we did a projection based on some data that NR Canada had captured in a project called Charge the North. And roughly speaking, at about 25% penetration on a loop, most of the infrastructure in the city will have like a huge amount of difficulty, not with 25% people charging simultaneously, just 25% penetration and a subset of that charging simultaneously. So we said, okay, so we sat down together and we said, okay, like if we can predict, help you optimize, incentivize the consumers, send them a dispatch, or even control the charger with opt-in, let's put that program together in a pilot format and let's see where we can take that. And we started working with them to define what that could be. We got the IESO, the system operator for Ontario to back it because they're also interested in basically what a large EV penetration means province-wide. And with Hydro Ottawa as kind of like the first test area where we're going to do this. So we just publicly announced that in March. We've been working on it, and there's multiple things that'll happen in this program. So there's a bunch of AI predictors that'll help Hydro Ottawa predict when there's going to be EV charging in certain areas of the city. The second thing is give them a calculation of what are the types of things that if you can optimize, and part of it is also they're looking at putting in front of the meter battery. So when we say behind the meter and in front of the meter, behind the meter means inside my house or inside my enterprise. In front of the meter means like out on the street. So Hydro Ottawa is allowed to do anything in front of the meter. Behind the meter is us as individual citizens. That's not their business. So as part of it, they're looking at putting some in front of the meter batteries, like on a street, where they can charge up that, we can help them charge up that battery before the EV load picks up. And then there's the energy that will come off the grid through the distribution system, but also discharge that in front of the meter battery to service the local area and avoid like big capital upgrades on wires, on transformers, on substations. These are potential, multi-billion-dollar upgrades to the city or to Hydro Ottawa, which is owned by the city. And so if we can help do this through an intelligent software mechanism to avoid those big expensive capital upgrades, then kind of everyone wins. Now, for the rest of us on the consumer side, like what could this potentially look like? As part of this project, we got the Ontario Energy Board collaborating with us. We've got Hydro Ottawa, Bluewave, and the Ontario Energy Board and IESO. So the Ontario Energy Board will be looking at, in quotes, novel mechanisms to enable this and incentivize consumers to behave. So if you look at it from the utility side, we're all just like stupid consumers who they need us to behave, right? That's just kind of how the utility world works. And if my colleagues from the utility were here, I would say, because you guys have a monopoly, so we're supposed to follow whatever you guys dictate. Now, but now the tables turn a bit because we're also with EVs, we also become a big revenue source, and we also become we potentially become a problem to them if we don't do things at the right time. And so they're trying to, it's almost like, I talked about Rockefeller and Standard Oil and Exxon. It's almost like it's going to go fully the other way now, right? So when you think about it, the utility becomes the person delivering the energy into our vehicles instead of the oil company. And they need to get ready for this. It's a big opportunity for them, but it's also a big headache. I think there's a question in the back there.
I'm when to come in with this, but it seems to me that one of the biggest problems we're running with is that especially Ontario has a very, doesn't have a good system for people to put behind the grid batteries to be able to help that out. When you're only giving a one-for-one, net metering solution, like why would I buy a battery? There's no money in it for me. It seems to me if they went with a time of use net metering system, they could.
We could be incentivized to take cheap energy and give it back to the grid when they need it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and so a great point. So as part of this project, IESO asked us to simulate vehicle to the grid. So we said, look, there's just not enough vehicle to the grid today, capable vehicles or infrastructure to do it. So they asked us, can you please simulate if on aggregate we had, you know, with the data that you guys collect, can you simulate for us if some of these behind the meter vehicles started giving electricity back to the grid and us getting compensated for it? Can you simulate that for us to feed that back to the OEB so that they can have data to base like future policy decisions on market pricing and market mechanisms on? So what's interesting about this project, and for people like Lutz and I, it's interesting because we'll be able to provide hard data feedback to the system operator, to the Ontario Energy Board on the types of things that could incentivize all of us while we all become the electricity grid benefits while we also benefit, right? So one part I didn't talk about yet is as part of this, we'll develop an app. Like everything under the sun, everyone needs to develop an app for something stupid. So hopefully this isn't as stupid as some of the other stupid apps, but basically what, as part of this app, and I was talking about the AI predictors, and the interface with the Ontario Energy Board as part of this program, what we want to do is basically, let's say, look, you don't want to have Bluewave through Hydro Ottawa control your charger in your house, right? You're like, you know what, guys, like, it's okay, but I don't want you touching that stuff. Okay, fine. You download the Bluewave app. Phone, that this is a good time for you to plug in and charge. Now, there's a second step to this. I'll get to your question in a second. There's a second step to this, which is, well, what if I just turned on my stove at the same time, right? If you opted in at this moment and jacked up your stove and your oven and your baseboard heaters and everything, that can look like an EV to us, right? Which is true. So we actually had a discussion with the CIO at Toronto Hydro, and he's like, yeah, you know what? I wouldn't expect the users for there to be 100% compliance to the app signal. So if the app signal on Lutz's phone says good time to charge, Lutz is like, I plugged in, yes, click, right? Now he can do that, and then eventually the utility's gonna read his meter, and basically we'll have some analytics running in the background that it's viable that he was charging, or it's probably not viable that he was charging because of the signatures of what that looks like and so forth. And then he'll get his discount or whatever financial compensation based on a certain amount of opt-in. I know Duke in North Carolina, they have a program that's kind of like $20 a month flat rate, all you can charge. And the flip side of I believe the Duke program, and they take control of your charger, but if you override too many times when the utility wants to actually control your charger, then basically what ends up happening is you just go back to standard rate. Like your bill just flips you to standard rate instead of qualifying for that $20 flat rate. So there's different things happening in the utilities. We're going to see through, I mean, there might be zero compliance to the app. Who knows? Hydro Ottawa is going to look into, you know, how to incentivize people to act on either the app or the direct control of the charger. So there were two questions back there.
But I was just gonna say, with the home automation becoming sort of so popular these days, is there not, like, does it matter whether it's a car or it's my air conditioning? If you can sort of incentivize me and say, okay, look, for the next 20 minutes, electricity is going to be cheaper, you know, and then so my home automation says, okay, let me drop the AC price and use a little.
Yeah. Like, to the utility, at the end of the day, if you got to do a job, you got to do a job. Whether it's cook your steak, you chill your house,
Yeah, or charge my car.
charge your car.
It's all-
It's all the same thing, right? So if you took electricity when they want you to take it, it's not a bad thing, right? So I think these are some of the things that we'll discover as part of this pilot. You know, it is a pilot project, and there'll be learning on all sides. I think we'll probably establish some kind of a consumer focus group to interact with and get feedback on how this is working or not working. I believe it's not that there's no one. It's up to Hydro Ottawa where they want to roll it out in the city. So I probably shouldn't say anything because I'm not Hydro Ottawa. They'll decide where they'll start with on this. But I'm personally hopeful that if we can do an app incentivized or app instigated user incentivization, then everyone should win. And you know, like what you're saying is correct, because we on the industrial side we've seen like industrial customers who are like, okay, let's pre-chill, you know, our industrial complex, our shopping mall, our airport now because electricity is cheap, and it's going to be more expensive later, and then we'll dial it down, but we're already pre-chilled, and it'll gradually heat up instead of reacting with chilling then. So it all makes sense to do that. I guess the other part that is not part of this EV Everywhere program, fleet, EV fleet orchestrator that helps the likes of OC Transpo or other electric fleets onboard electric fleet. So think about it this way. For an individual adopting an EV, you change your behavior on a daily basis versus when you had a ICE powered vehicle, right? You have to say, oh well, I got to plug in my car today. I got to plug in my car at my office. I got to make sure that on this route I'm going to have this type of charging. Now just think about that for a second, and then think about an operation running 400 buses or 1,000 FedEx delivery vehicles, and the operational changes that they would have, right? So previously, the vehicles goes out and does whatever route, their bus route, their delivery route, their UPS route. They get loaded up with packages or with people, and they go do their run and they come back. And they have a certain amount of fuel left, and they go do another run and they come back. And everyone pretty well knows what can be how many miles per day can be covered without a refuel. And then they refuel, and literally it takes like, they put the vehicles in line, and the fueling things just plug in, and 5 minutes later they go to washing, away they go. So now you got like 400 buses, and you want to electrify, let's say 4. So it's like, okay, electrify 4, buy 4 chargers, you know, send them on some like tiny routes locally. And then like some guy calls up and says, I need to send a bus on Route 69. And can you send that electric bus? No, it's charging. All right, just send one of the diesel buses. So a quote from one of our partners in the US, where they onboarded a whole bunch of New Flyer and Proterra buses, and he's like, just come to the depot at 2 p.m. and look around the depot and see which vehicles are in the depot, and they're all the electric buses. So they get charged overnight, they go do some runs, and then the fleet operator's like, I don't want to send any half-empty electric buses on the road, because if that gets empty, because it's a high air conditioning load on that day, and the bus doesn't make it back to the depot, we're screwed. So just put them back on the charger and send the diesel buses up. So the joke is the electric buses just stay in the parking lot, but the mayor's happy that he bought a bunch of electric buses, which it kind of defeats the whole point, right? Like you want to put the electric buses as much as you can out on the road and displace the diesel miles from the road. In practice, the 20-year operator of the fleet does not have the data in his head. He doesn't have the ability to react to the longer charging cycle of the electric bus and when to interleave that. And, you know, let's say it's in Ottawa, put it on the transitway from Albert Street to Canada Centrum and back. It's like, you know what, just send that electric bus on this tiny route on Rideau Street to Vanier and bring it back.
Yeah, but all of that is a learning thing that the operators need to learn how to run the electric buses. And OC Transpo in particular, the software they have actually accounts for the type of bus and the type of energy and all that, right? So software could overcome those problems, no issue, right?
Yeah.
The problem is the mindset of people who are afraid because they don't know electric stuff.
Yeah.
They're afraid they'll run out of power at some point, right?
Yeah.
But OC Transpo, just to give you an example, OC Transpo a number of years ago, they had articulated buses that had no gas gauge on them, okay? And
Yeah.
what would happen is the diesel buses would run out of fuel while they were actually doing a run. They dealt with that. They figured out how to work with that, right? So
Yeah.
they need to do the same thing with the electric buses.
Yeah.
Which actually the electric buses will tell them exactly how much
State of charge they have, and you can get that pumped up through the internet back.
Yeah.
And you
can
get
also
warning
calculate-
way before you run out.
Yes.
Just saying.
Yeah. And therefore, so what we, okay, so if you buy 4 buses and you got 400 other buses, just park them. You buy 40 buses and you have 360 regular buses, you kind of have to get a bit more organized. You have to get a lot more organized. Now you have 100 buses and 300 electric buses. Sorry, you have 300 ICE buses and 100 electric buses. The 100 electric buses are no longer to have. They're mission critical. They're part of the network. And you have to utilize them to their full capacity. And that's why we built the Bluewave-ai EV Fleet Orchestrator. We finished a project last summer, the first phase, the analysis project with Dubai Taxi. So they have this vision of 3,000 electric taxis. I think right now there's somewhere around 200, but they would like to onboard approximately 100 a month, starting with Tesla taxis, but then they're going to go to add Kia taxis and Hyundai taxis into their fleet. And what they want to do is maximize their revenue with electric miles. So today, the electric taxis actually have a premium price that people pay. And because of government incentive, they're actually getting free electricity in their fleet from Dubai Electricity and Water Authority. So it's big margin for them. But at the end of the day, it's get maximum revenue from your electric fleet. So our job is to basically predict when they're going to have the biggest revenue periods, and outside of the revenue periods, when do we send those things off for charging? So they had a very simple schedule, 2 shifts of 12 hours, 8 hours of driving, 4 hours of charging, 8 hours of driving, 4 hours of charging per vehicle, 2 drivers, 12-hour shift. Very simple. And we showed them that they were leaving a whole bunch of revenue off the table, because there were times when the driver stopped for a smoke break. And they're like, you know what, I don't feel like picking up a fare right now.
They could be charging them.
They could be charging them, right? But they don't. So what ends up happening is that the driver decides to take his extended 2.5-hour smoke break, and he could have been charging all that time, right? because he's not getting revenue during that time when he's not when he's taking a smoke. So, so for that 2.5 hours, that electric vehicle is not generating revenue. And then for 4 other hours, when it's a pre-planned charging time, it's not getting any revenue either. But they had to put in a system that they could operate on. And right now, the electric taxis are nice to have because it's not a high penetration out of whatever 3,000 taxis they have. But once they get to 600 taxis out of 3,000 and 1,200 taxis out of 3,000, they got to get organized. And they will soon also, and this is another fleet problem, you run out of grid, not necessarily with taxis, but with buses. You have a limited size grid connection into your depot. You have X number of chargers, Y number of buses. If X equals Y and it's under the grid connection, it's easy. If X is, if the total charging delivery is smaller than the capacity of the fleet, then you got to figure out when you're going to hang what vehicles off what chargers. And all of this requires, all of this doesn't have 20 years of data in people's head. And that's where a company like ours here at Bluewave, we feel we can accelerate that because we'll just acquire the data. We'll have our data scientists write AI predictors and optimizers, and then we'll deliver dispatches via dashboard and control chargers and plug into their software systems so that, you know, that worry that the operators have of, you know, I'm going to get myself fired if the TTC taxis, sorry, buses electricity during the 2026 FIFA World Cup, well, that would be a bad thing, right? So you need a system that's better than, you know, humans standing around scratching their heads and pressing buttons and trying to operate exactly like they were doing with the ice fleets. We're going to see a big transition, and you know, obviously it's a plug for our company at Bluewave. One of the reasons why myself and the other founders, we felt like Ottawa would be a good place, because we have this like cross section of people in our industry, from software as a service, from cloud computing, from networking, from AI, and we have to have all of that under one roof in our company, because a high electrification, high renewable penetration society has to react to a lot of fluctuating data on the fly. And our goal, and I'll close it off by saying our goal is to build the world's premier renewable energy and transport electrification AI company based here in Canada. We think that we have all the skills in our local economy in terms of like the engineers. We think we have the right government policies in general. I don't know everyone's political leaning, so we'll leave it at that. But in general, in terms of electrification of our society, adoption of renewable energy, and this Harvard economist Michael Porter about the competitiveness of nations, and what that book basically, if you simplify it, what it says is, if you have a domestic market with all the moving parts, and where the consumers like care about that category of product, then the companies from that society can launch ahead in that market. So, you know, the joke is, yeah, so we're going to make like good hockey sticks and snowmobiles because our consumers care about it. But, you know, and Germans will make really good quality cars because, you know, yeah, my brother-in-law is a French guy. He's like, you know, like the French auto guys, they can't compete with German auto guys because Frenchmen don't care about their cars like Germans care about their cars. So therefore, we'll always lose to Germans in automotive. You know, Renault, Peugeot, all of that versus BMW, Audi. Like if you go to Shanghai, do they want to buy a Renault or do they want to buy a BMW? There's your answer, right? So in terms of doing a company like Blue Wave in Canada, I think we have all the moving parts. If you think about like what makes companies and nations competitive, all those moving parts are here in Canada for us to be able to pull it off. So we're fortunate that Hydro Ottawa has jumped in to help on this EV Everywhere program, IESO, and the Ontario Energy Board, because if you think about in the big picture, if we collectively can contribute as EV owners to the adoption of more renewable energy, that whole problem that Laura Richardson has in Hawaii, every nation's going to have it in some degree. It's just amplified in Hawaii. I think there's big opportunity ahead of us. So, but if there's any questions about the company or
I've been having questions here. I've been raising my hand.
yes, sorry. What's your name, by the way?
Robert.
Robert, nice to meet you. Sorry about that.
All right. So first of all, I think that the concept overall is great. I think that what you're doing to use a predictive AI technology to help load the electric grid, essentially, or balance the electric grid is valuable. However, listening to you, I see a couple of problems, and either you can perhaps tell me the flaws in my logic, or perhaps show me how you envision the solution to this particular problem.
Okay.
Like, for example, with Tesla Powerwalls or other residential solar producers who have at-home battery systems, I can see what you're talking about being a flawless solution. There's really no issue there whatsoever.
Yeah.
However, most people don't have solar panels up on their roofs or anything like that.
Yeah.
And battery race potential solution. But the problem that I'm seeing is the time that it's most needed is when people are at work, and their cars are just sitting in a parking lot, not plugging into anything. And I would actually be really opposed to people plugging into things just to sort of balance the load, because if someone needs a charge, but everybody's using up the available chargers because they're just trying to balance the load, but that can cause problems. So I'm looking at, I'm not seeing the obvious solution. It seems obvious superficially, but pragmatically, I'm like, well, how do you get the sheep EV drivers to comply with their behavior?
So actually, I'm doing a presentation. I'll talk about it later, but on Wednesday, I'm doing a presentation on using EVs to store renewable energy. Exactly the same topic, right?
Yeah.
So if you go to a garage, an underground garage, a condo building or something during the middle of the day, you'll be surprised how many vehicles are still there. Okay, so we tend to be used to situations where we work during the day, regular business hours, Monday to Friday, and we're at home on weekends and all that, right? That's not everybody, right? There's a lot of retired people. There's people who commute through transit and all that, right? There's also people charging at work, and there's fleets, and there's a bunch of other things, right? So there's an opportunity to control when people actually charge, but there's also an opportunity to control when vehicles are able to provide energy to the grid, right? And when we get enough vehicles, so according to our numbers, and our numbers are fairly aggressive, and Mike afterward, I'm sure would be interested in talking to you about that, but according to our numbers, there'll be in Ontario alone about 3 million EVs by 2030.
Okay, so 8 years from now.
8 years from now.
Yeah.
So if you do the math and you take even a small percentage of those being available for either charging on demand or providing to the grid, it far exceeds the capacity of production facilities on the Ontario grid as it is.
We need a substantial amount.
We only need a small portion and only need to take a small portion of the energy out of the battery. So you talked about a Powerwall, right? How much is a Powerwall? Well, they're about $12,000 US currently. And you can't buy them separately from solar. That's a whole other thing with Tesla. But anyways, they're very expensive. There are alternatives that are cheaper, but we had someone, Daryl did a calculation a few years ago, and he couldn't find a scenario where there was a business case to be made to use home storage to charge at night, let's say, when rates are lower, and then pump it back into the grid because of limited cycles and a bunch of stuff, right? But if you think about it, the Powerwall is what, 12, 13 kilowatt hours, right? How much is your car? You've got a fairly small battery in your car and it's 660, right?
Actually, I only have 30.
Yeah, I have 30. Okay, well, let's say the average car is around 60 these days, right? That's the
There's the
equivalent.
math.
That's
There's the
equivalent
math.
of 4 Powerwalls,
Yeah,
right?
there's
So
your math.
why would you spend 12,000 US times 4, $50,000, $60,000 to install Powerwalls at home when you already have a battery in your car that could be used for that, right?
And that's the whole point of the EV Everywhere project is now we got all these distributed batteries, which on aggregate is a huge amount of storage for the grid, or it's a huge rogue load for the grid. And statistically speaking, you don't need everyone to participate. You need a subset to participate on an ongoing basis. And that's why the OEB is interested. I think it's a great signal that when we proposed this project, that the OEB jumped on it and say, we want to participate. There's this thing called the OEB sandbox, where they give, in the OEB sandbox, what happens is they kind of waive the standard rules of how things are charged for. To try out pilot economic models, see what shakes out, and then see if it goes into the standard regulatory frameworks and so on. There's another question back there.
About that sort of OEB and all of that, do you know, with the solar through net metering, could they do time of use net metering? I see as one of the biggest problems. I'm, looking at trying to put solar on my house right now, and but I'm giving the grid at 2 p.m. when they need the electricity to run the air conditioners. I'm giving you 1 kilowatt of electricity, and you're saying thank you very much. And oh, you want 1 kilowatt of electricity at 2 a.m. when we're paying people to use our electricity, I'll give you 1 back. Well, that's like not exactly fair.
So do you know the answer to that?
No,
I know the answer to that. The meters you have right now at home, the smart meters, are capable of tracking
The
that.
smart meters, but the net meters are different.
No, they're not really different. No, they're not really different. So they can track what goes out and into your house. They do that already. They know when it goes in and out of your house. So they would be able to have a time of day pricing policy applied to you. Why aren't they doing it? Well, that's an OEB thing and a regulatory issue, right?
That's where I see the OEB. That if you really want this system to succeed, what you have to do is tell the OEB, you need to put a time of use system in place as well, so that even people who are doing, solar and all that are being properly compensated for getting the energy at the high time and taking it at the low time.
So one thing that happened in your Hydro 1, right?
Yes.
So if you're in Hydro Ottawa territory, they just changed their billing fees so that they used to have a fee of about $25 a month. I think it was to have solar. They just eliminated that, okay, to try to make it more of an incentive to have solar. But you're right, there are some incentives like that. Now, for the right to use my car and control my car, I want to be compensated somehow, right? So what they're trying to figure out is what is the price. Now, if you look at some of the work that's been done already, and there's a presentation, I don't know if you've seen, EV Society had a few presentations on what Oshawa's been doing and a few others.
No, I haven't seen it.
So maybe we should connect after and I could give you links to the recordings. But so one of the studies they did showed that one vehicle provided the value of $8,000 per year to the grid by allowing charging in both bidirectional charging. Okay.
Yeah.
Now that does not mean that you would be compensated that much for participating in there. But personally, if they tell me I could save $1,000 a year by having Hydro control when my car charges and let it discharge once in a while, hey, I'd be happy with that, right?
Well, and in this program, it's just controlling. Hydro would control your car put energy into your car, not take from your car, right? So it's just,
Yeah.
it's energy you're gonna take anyway. You're
Yes.
gonna drive your miles, you're gonna drive your miles per
Yes.
week. The question is, when do you take
So
it?
this is a.
And then if I sit back and I say, all right, Hydro Ottawa, just take control. I need my kilowatt hours of energy per week.
Mhm, mhm.
You deliver them when it's convenient for you, but hey, pay up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Pay me up, I'll let you touch it.
So the nice thing about this is that there's no impact on warranties or anything, right? Because you as an individual could decide when you charge your car.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're doing it the other way, there's an issue with warranties and all that, and also an issue with very few vehicles support that. at
The
this point,
vehicle to
right?
the grid, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but you could see that this will be quite interesting. If you look at, so 3 million, this is in 2030.
Yeah,
If the whole fleet is electrified, we're talking about 12 million cars in Ontario.
Yeah.
12 million cars. That's a lot of storage space, right?
that's
Is Bill thinking-
a lot of storage space, but a lot of energy to deliver
Yes.
through the poles and wires.
Yes, so.
Which is what the utilities are also worried about.
Yeah, so there's a lot of flexibility too in managing the demand in a
Yeah.
way that.
And so for us, the people who are blue waivers in the house, while we see like fleets like OC Transpo and TTC as really good customers, the big picture is the EV Everywhere program, the 12 million, the 3 million, the 1 million, the 500K. That really moves the needle for society, first of all. And then if we can enable that, we're not a charity, we have to make revenue along the way. But if we can help, you save money, save Hydro Ottawa upgrades, and we make some money along the way, all of that money is coming. Sorry if you work for the but it's a competitive world at the end of the day, right?
The other thing to note is that as I'm sure you guys have remember us discussing before, the average Canadian commutes 30 kilometers per day, right? So how much time does it take to recharge 30 kilometers? Not very long, less than an hour, right? So if everybody, or a large proportion of people who are commuting, plug in their car and start charging whenever they get home, well, it increases the peak that happens at supper time. And that peak is all being produced with natural gas in Ontario, right?
Exactly at the same time that the stove is on, the kettle's on, the air conditioning is
The
on.
TV's on, and this and that is on, exactly, right?
Uber Eats and
That too.
Yeah, so there's all sorts of good reasons.
But those
why-
guys have to heat up your food before it comes to you.
It's no longer on my meter.
It's not on your meter, but it's on Hydro Ottawa's meter.
Yeah, but there's all sorts of reasons why we want to be able to manage that. And if you look at my situation at home, I have a heat pump for my water heater.
Yeah,
Well, I try to heat my water at night,
yeah,
right? And I
Preheat
use it during the day.
Yeah.
And then that way, when I get home and I do the dishes or I take a shower in the morning, whatever, I'm not heating the replacement water right away. So I'm moving the demand to some other time of the day, right?
yeah.
Where it's cheaper. So this is the future of what we're going to see in the grid, not just EVs, but
Yeah.
EVs will be a big portion for sure.
Yeah.
So is there
Okay.
any other questions? Yeah.
I actually did have another question. You actually dropped, I think, a gem and sort of moved on. I'd like to speak more about it, actually. You were kind of alluding to the fact that there's street chargers or wherever the charging stations may be publicly. And you were alluding to the fact that they may be adding battery packs to those charging stations. Now, perhaps there may be some sort of cheaper battery chemistry, but can you also talk about like how, is that actually a plan that's being discussed?
Yeah, I think there was a slight misinterpretation specifically on this EV Everywhere program. It's not what the idea is that there's larger batteries in Hydro Ottawa's distribution network. Let's say it's on my street, okay? And a whole bunch of people on my street buy EVs. And they're like, okay, we can upgrade all the distribution infrastructure here, but it's actually cheaper to put battery storage on the street, literally on the street. Fill it up when people don't need it, when they aren't charging EVs.
So we're talking about like those are like green electrical boxes?
Yeah, something like that.
Just some sort of cheap chemistry.
And you won't even know what's inside. It'll just be like a green box.
Well, yes, but something like that would be scattered around the city, maybe it'd be an orange box.
Yeah,
so-
yeah.
So there's other use cases like that. So if you look at condos that are trying to charge lots of cars overnight, right?
Okay.
There are some
There doesn't
cases
need it
where
behind them.
they may need a battery inside the building. They would charge the battery during the day when the cars are out, and then charge the cars at night with the battery because there's not enough capacity
From the grid
Basically,
at that time.
Use them as capacitors to.
as buffers. Yeah, yes,
Yeah.
Within the curve.
exactly.
Because it's all, like, think about a condo building, right? There's a pipe this big servicing the whole condo building. So you have all the lights on, all the stoves on in the condo building, whatever, 150 units, and then you have 30 EVs in the basement. And this pipe's only so big, right? And it's,
Still a lot bigger, I'll just tell you right now. I have an analogy for you. So in rural areas, they have low pressure water systems.
Yeah.
And then they have a tank that fills up overnight and they use that. It's basically the same concept, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
totally.
It's the exact same concept, yeah. So we'll take one more question, then we'll
Move
move
on.
on.
I'm just sort of curious, why, like, this sounds like by Hydro Ottawa or whatever hydro company or whatever district we're talking about, to have these sort of battery packs locally distributed. It seems to me, especially with economies of scale and battery transfer, they can probably do this en masse fairly easily. Why are we relying upon the home user, residential users and contributors, as opposed to why not sort of like look at a solution that is not dependent upon people who may or may not comply?
yeah, so this is exactly what you're saying. This is Hydro Ottawa would, just like Hydro Ottawa owns substations, they own wires, they own transformers, they would own these batteries. You know, some were sitting co-located with the substation or something like that. And that would provide this, just like we were talking about water tanks. You just store the energy there and then discharge it when it's needed. The part that we don't think about is that's a lot of CapEx. Guess who's going to pay for all that CapEx? So everything that Hydro Ottawa spends on, it finds its way into ratepayers. So that's all of us paying for that. But it may be cheaper, and that's part of the experiment of this project. It may be cheaper than upgrading the actual grid system. Put the storage in the system.
So we're gonna move on, okay, because we're gonna run out of time.
Okay.
But I did want to thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And actually, there is one thing I want to say before we move on to the next, Sam, before we move on to the next topic. So personally, what I would like to see in terms of that pilot is some ability for me to opt in.
Yeah.
And I let Hydro Ottawa decide what they want, whenever they want, except I have.
Except when you need to
If I
override.
need to override, I have a big red
Press the
button
button
and I
from your
charge
app.
now or something.
Yeah.
And that's all I want, right? I don't want to have to be bothered every day to actually opt in every day. I want to opt out instead because it'd be
Yes.
a lot easier for me, right?
Yeah, that's how that's what we're envisioning.
Okay, because most people in that scenario, they come home, they plug in the car,
And
and
then
then they let the system worry about charging it and
Yeah.
they're done, right?
just give me this amount of charge by this time.
Exactly. Or give me anywhere between this and this, whatever you have available, and that's, I need the minimum of
Okay.
this, but give me more if you have more.
We understand.
So
Move on.
anyways, but I'd be interested in talking to you later about this because this is very, very interesting to me.
Like an email.
Yeah,
Next.
so one thing I forgot to mention is, I want to thank again CAA for providing sponsorship for the wrap on our trailer. So Bluewave we just did, so we'll go to, actually, before I talk about EVX, I just wanted to bring this up. Mike, you're very familiar with these numbers, right? We talked about these before. These are the numbers of EV share for Q1 of 2022. Okay, this year, first quarter of this year, British Columbia is at 17.1%. It's almost 1 in 5 vehicles sold in BC is electric. Okay, this is the first quarter. So we're at a total of 8% for the nationally, which is up from 5% last year. So, and if it wasn't for supply issues, we would think that we would.
Would you say this is most driven by the provinces have the biggest incentive? program?
Yes.
Absolutely. So if you see the winners are British Columbia and Quebec, right?
Yeah,
But if you look at some others that are actually growing a lot right now, so Prince Edward Island and these.
yeah, BEI's got some good incentives now, right?
So every province in Canada, except Ontario, Saskatchewan and Alberta, have incentives. Even the Yukon has an incentive now, $5,000.
What about
Right.
Nunavut, because it ain't moving.
I think Nunavut has an incentive, but I'm not sure. Nunavut is a bit of a different story because they're
They're having none of it.
There's only 20,000 people in Nunavut.
no, they're very isolated also, very small isolated communities, so it's a bit of a different situation for them. Electricity is very expensive in those communities, by the way. So anyways, market share is growing like that, and if we have more availability of vehicles,
Actually, in Nunavut, the primary utility, Kulik Energy Corporation, all of their energy is from diesel. Has been.
Yeah, it's all diesel.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
it's super
yeah.
expensive.
yeah,
Because there's no sun and barely wind.
no, actually.
But there is wind. The difficulty is putting the wind turbines up there.
Well,
And
well,
actually
and
ship
the
them
wires
and
and-
okay, but this is a much longer discussion, but EVCO mines in the Northwest
Yes,
Territories,
they got four,
three turbines.
three or four.
They have three, I think,
Yeah.
turbines, and they get about 30% of their power from the turbines.
Yeah.
And actually, there are many communities way up north that are deploying solar. Okay, because diesel powered electricity is so freaking expensive that solar is.
Right,
is
but
very-
6 months a year, there's no sun.
Maybe, but the rest of the year they have a lot of sun. The rest of the year they have a lot of sun, and it actually is economic for them to do that, right? But let's move on to other stuff because that in itself could be a whole meeting. Clicker will click. Maybe my battery is. Okay, no, can you go back up one, please? Thank you. Okay, so there have been some changes at Enviro Center. Okay, so I sent an email to board members earlier on about that. Just to be, anyways, you can read the email later, but Elise McCann will be taking over the project management of the EVX project. So what we're going to be seeing, we've already seeing it, is we're seeing events actually being scheduled. So we have a full slate of events scheduled for July, and we'll talk about those events a bit later in the meeting. But we have asked them, it's been several weeks I've been asking them, get events booked because we want you, and you includes us too, right? We want to be able to know when there are events and when we are expected to commit to doing something, right? So we're getting events booked as soon as possible, and we'll be relentless on them to try to book events as soon as possible. It's been a real pain in the butt for me personally, and I know for some others too, that we don't have a clear schedule for the rest of the summer and fall, right? Normally, in previous years, we've had our schedule laid out more or less in April for most of the summer, right? So it's very disappointing that we don't have that yet, but we're going to get there, okay? So things are going quite well at this point. So other stuff, we're going to have someone coordinating the volunteers that are at our events, okay? So we'll have a table with snacks and drinks and stuff like that, so that if you have a question about something, you ask that person from Enviro Center what whatever you want to ask, and they will be there to help us coordinate the volunteers. They're going to take care of the bookings and all that, the surveys for the most part, okay? So, and we'll take care of the test drives. So reminder, if anybody has some receipts that haven't been paid yet, please tell us and we'll get those reimbursed, okay? So remember I told you guys a while back that if you had any parking receipts, food receipts, or even if you don't have a receipt but you did incur parking, let us know. We'll reimburse you, okay? We'd like to get receipts as much as possible, obviously, but if you don't have them, not a big deal, we'll reimburse it. So they're also providing an access point and a tablet, which I think Michael has.
Yep.
We have little cards that I think I have an example here. So this was actually a request from my wife. I don't have it here.
I have them in my car.
I just
Yeah.
need one.
So they look like this. I don't know if you see them there in the.
Walk up to the camera. You like to walk up to the camera. There you go.
Okay.
Oh,
So
that's invisible. There you go.
anyways, so the idea with these cards is that if someone asks you about EVs, you know, you're doing like my wife was telling me that she was doing. She's in a parking lot and they're seeing the Model Y and they're saying, hey, that's an electric car. What about this? What about that? Right? So so I've given some of these to my wife, and what you could do is give that to someone and say, hey, you know, there's a QR code, there's a website, go there and register and look for events, and we'll be happy to provide test drives, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you have. Okay? So, there's enough cards, Mike.
I have a whole box.
So we'll distribute them, and if you want cards to give to people, you'll be able to do that, okay? Anything else? We have a TV we're setting up to show slots, and anyways, we're gonna keep on improving stuff as we go forward. But again, for me, the focus was book events, and we'll talk about the other stuff later, because the events are really critical to our let's see if this works. No, doesn't work?
No.
Can you please? Again? Okay, so there's, like I said in an email about 2 weeks ago, I believe, when I talked about registering for Community 2, there's really 3 different ways you could participate in the EV experience. Way number 1 is what we've been doing already, right? So you show up here with your vehicle, you do test drives, you speak to the public and all that stuff, right? That's what we've been doing for a number of years. That's what we're going to keep on doing. The second way is to be registered with Community 2. 6 of you have already registered. And the idea there is that we'll have a Community 2 vehicle at events. With Community 2, you can, as a Community 2 member, do a test drive with someone who's not a member. So, okay, so we have to do a test drive with the Kia Niros from Community 2. We have to have someone who's a member of Community 2, or we could have anybody else drive the vehicle. Okay.
That's part of the EVX thing. So
yeah. Okay.
Don't worry about signing up yourself. We can do it through EVX.
What do you mean?
Like, don't personally sign up to Community 2 online.
Correct.
You go through EVX to do it.
Yeah. So so I sent an email earlier a couple of weeks ago that said how to do that, right? So you need to send you a copy of your driver's license to Mandy.
Yeah.
Mandy Wilson, which is confusing because there's Wilson Wood. But anyways, Mandy will process the thing for you, and you should get an account on their website, and you should get also a fob that allows you to access some vehicles that require fobs to be accessed. But anyway, so 6 people have signed up already. This is great for people who don't have an EV that's popular, or people who want to help out more during the events, right? So if you're not doing a test drive, if I'm not doing a test drive with my Model Y, I could do a test drive with the Kia Niro because I'm there, okay? So the idea would be to have us do most of the test drives and have the EnviroCenter people take care of the boring stuff, the registrations, the surveys, pre and post surveys, okay? You have a question, Greg?
Also, with people like myself who can't,
yes,
for insurance, can't, this way, the insurance is covered if someone crashes a Community Auto vehicle.
Yes.
Your insurance isn't,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for those of you who, for insurance reasons or for personal risk aversion reasons, whatever your reason is, you don't let people test drive your vehicle, you'd be able to do test drives with the Kia Niros that we have with EnviroCenter, okay? I'm sorry, with Community 2. So if anybody else wants to register, there's 6 of us have registered. Please feel free to do so. The concierge service, okay? So the original name of the project was the EV concierge service. And one of the main features was the ability to do ad hoc test drives. So the idea is you go on the website and there's a list of time slots where you could do a test drive. So what we'd like to do is, I'm signed up for doing that right now. We'd like to have some other volunteers to help run through the process. We'll be able to do that either with your personal vehicles or the Community vehicles, okay? So if you're doing it with a community tow vehicle, that would mean you would have to go and pick up the community tow vehicle, go to the person's place, do the test drive, bring back the vehicle, okay? The way it's set up in the system, and this is one of the things we need to confirm through testing, is the test drive should be half an hour. So you need to plan to be there at whoever is getting a test drive at say 8 o'clock at night or something, whatever it may be. And there's a half an hour for a test drive there. Then there'll be a buffer of half an hour put in there automatically. So if you did have another test drive after, you'd have half an hour to get to the next appointment. Okay? Make sense? Okay. So anyways, I'd like, if there's anybody who'd like to volunteer for that, to get on the list, let me know. Let me know now if you want to, but we'd be interested to have someone else go through the process. I've gone through the process. I was going to demo it tonight, but we don't have time, so I won't do it tonight. But they have a sheet that shows you step by step how to register and all that. And it's quite straightforward. In my case, it actually synchronizes my Outlook calendar with the booking system. So if I put a meeting, let's say tonight, for example, right, 7:30 to 10 o'clock, I put a meeting in my calendar, it will make me unavailable in their system automatically because it's syncing in both directions, okay? So it's quite straightforward to use, and I'd like to have someone who's not familiar with the system to try out the instructions. I'm familiar with the booking tool, so for me, it's quite easy to set it up, but we just want to make sure that people who haven't seen the back end of the booking tool, we'd like to have someone go through the instructions to make sure that we have everything captured properly. So Bill, you're volunteering? Great.
What's your minimum age for a test drive?
Hey?
What's the minimum age for a test drive?
That's a darn good question.
Of course.
They
need a valid G license.
They need a valid
So
license.
if you're 16, you can get it.
You don't have a G. It's It has to be the G license, not a G1 or
Yeah.
2.
We actually check it with, there's a website with the MTO where you could do a check to see if it's valid, because if you have a license that's suspended, you may still have your license that looks like it's valid, right?
No longer. You have to return the card
No,
to start your suspension.
You're supposed to.
Well, that's it time's out.
not.
Sam, you're supposed to.
The suspension doesn't start until you bring that card.
Okay, well, anyways,
Anyway,
you've been told it's possible that they're suspended.
cards also expire.
So
My stepdaughter has medical suspension
Yeah.
Because of a medical condition,
Yeah.
and she still has her blue license.
Okay. So anyways, we check it just to make sure that people aren't, we don't have people who, what was it, Nicola, on King Edward, someone was caught driving at 129 kilometers an hour, I think?
119.
119 kilometers an hour in King Edward, that's pretty ambitious. So we don't want people with suspended licenses to drive with us, right? So anyways, if you would like to volunteer, let us know. We are looking for volunteers to go through this, okay?
Yeah. Just the volunteer dates and duties that we can look at.
No, I was joking when I said the, but if you do want to,
'Cause I've seen.
we could talk about it.
When you sign up for volunteering, and there's 8 months of your life gone.
No, the way it's gonna work is in the booking tool, you're gonna go and put your availability, whatever your availability is. So it's up to you to
So if you want to
decide.
do like every Tuesday evening or whatever, then that's
You
the
can
next
do that.
30 years.
Yeah, you could do whatever you decide that's
Got
okay with you, okay? So,
All right.
so now it's Mike's turn. We're gonna talk about EV News.
Now it's my turn. I'll try and pick up the pace a little bit. All right, time for the news. If this works. Your clicker sucks.
It works sometimes.
Okay, well, Tommy, can you click the mouse? There, my 9-year-old will do it. All right, so as some members of EVCO and beyond have noticed, IKEA is building things in their parking lot. I've reached out to IKEA. We have a contact, Julie, and she has confirmed that those things they are building are indeed fast chargers. No, they're not Tesla fast chargers. They are for their last mile delivery fleet of trucks that they are about to get. And there is a Tesla Mega Pack in the background there. Those things are $1 million a piece, and that'll be used as a buffer to power the chargers, presumably, because IKEA has a small pipe, apparently, to the building for electricity. And so anyway,
Similar to what we were talking.
similar to what we were talking about earlier, that's what they have there. So it's right co-located next to the chargers, and your questions have been answered. Next. Perfect, Tommy. Canada Post is converting half of their last mile delivery fleet. Oh, Tommy, you have a question.
So what if you like just got your EV and you're planning to go on a road trip? How do you find like the
There's an
charges
app for
and
that.
stuff?
There's apps for that. Yeah, you already know this. Anyway, okay. Canada Post is converting half of their 14,000 vehicle fleet to EV by 2030. So that's 7,000 vehicles for those who are good at math and work at StatCan. The rest will be converted by 2040. It's part of a $1 billion commitment to reach net zero by 2050, and that includes buildings and whatnot as well. They are going to host electric vehicle days with purchase incentives for their employees in 2022. So Raymond, we might want to get in on that somehow, because their headquarters happens to be in Ottawa, weirdly enough.
So I did talk to the Fire Center to reach out to them on the 9th.
There you go. So stay tuned for that. There might be some volunteer opportunities. Their vehicles traveled 240 million kilometers last year, although each individual vehicle is in the low kilometer usage category. Low tens is what they typically drive per vehicle. So those mail trucks you see don't actually drive very far, but when you have 14,000 of them driving all at once every single day, it adds up. Next slide, please. Volkswagen ID Buzz is in production. So if you are waiting on an electric camper van, your wait just got a little bit shorter. The production started June 2nd in production. The ID.6 is China only. But yeah, Volkswagen has a whole bunch of EVs in production. Only one of them is coming to North America because Volkswagen apparently thinks Canada doesn't like hatchbacks for whatever reason. They're going to produce 15,000 ID buses or Buzz this year just for Europe. Their ultimate goal is 130,000 units per year in the coming years, and that's not clear whether that's all in Hanover or whether that's combined with Chattanooga, Tennessee, where they will also be producing them for the North American market. North America is actually going to get them a slightly longer version for 7 seats because America needs bigger things. And those will come out in 2024, so just wait longer, as Ace Ventura says. They support charging up to 170 kilowatts, although stay tuned for that. That might update soon. And they have vehicle to house, or V2H, as they're calling it, bidirectional power. It's like vehicle to load, only it goes to your house. So I assume it may be better. Who knows?
Can you still use it in camping if your house is not there?
Maybe. Well, I mean, the camper version, probably.
But it's not
It's gonna be
there in your
dope.
house.
We'll see. It could be your house. You could just make it your house. Be one of those van life people on
Yeah.
Instagram. Hashtag van life. Check it out. Next slide, please. 2023 Hyundai Ioniq 6. So if you think my car is cool, the Ioniq 5, there is a sedan coming out called the Ioniq 6. This is not what it actually looks like. This is a render based on leaks and drawings that Hyundai has been putting out to build hype, which I think they've successfully done. It's going to debut at the Busan Auto Show the day after my birthday. The automaker has been teasing this forever now. They're calling it the electrified streamliner. I Googled streamliner, and what you get are those 1930s, like, sleek cars that the mobsters used Tommy guns out the windows of. So this is going to be cool. It's based on the 2020 Prophecy concept. It's on the eGMP platform, so it should have the same exact specs as the EV6 and the Ioniq 5 and the GV60, which means really fast charging, 77 kilowatt hour battery pack, really long range because it's more aerodynamic than our slugs of an Ioniq 5. And yeah, it should be cool. And it's supposed to look really cool. They actually sent it back to the drawing board literally to redesign it because the production version they came out with a couple of years ago was so ugly. Everyone was like, no. So they sent it back to be made prettier. Next slide, please. Hence why it's delayed now. FedEx got 150 Bright Drop Zevo 600 vehicles. Those used to be called the EV600. Now they're called Zevo, I guess. So Bright Drop is actually building stuff and delivering stuff, and it's all going to FedEx in California. But they have 150 out of 200 or 2,500 units on order. So things are starting to move. The first 5 arrived in December, and then obviously the rest have arrived up until now. They want to transform their entire fleet to zero emissions by 2040, and FedEx owns a really big fleet. This does not include the airplanes, of course, because airplanes still burn fossils. This is the largest version of the Bright Drop vehicles. It's 600 because 600 cubic feet of cargo space. It has a range of 400 kilometers and change. And they're built in Ontario. At least they will be when their factory's up and running. So cool. Next slide. Maybe Canada wants to get these. The 2024 Cadillac Lyric is now open for pre-orders because they ran out of 2023s. Cadillac has never actually said how many 2023s were available. Based on market industry people, it sounds like it's not a lot. So take that for what you will, but the 2024 order book is opening. It's $100 to put down your name for a all-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive Lyric. Yeah, GM has said 250,000 people have expressed interest, whatever that means. Deliveries are expected for the 2023 version. So if you're one of those like 100 people or whatever that got in their pre-order, then your car is about to be produced and delivered any day now. If not, just keep waiting. Next slide, please. Toyota has recalled the BZ4X. I'm going to call it the BZ4X because Canada speaks English correctly. Because the wheels might fall off. So Toyota's off to a great start with their brand new only EV, their first and only EV. It's a global recall. The car has been on sale for just 2 months. The quote, "The hub bolt may loosen due to repeated sharp turns and sudden braking. Therefore, if you continue to drive in that state, i.e. loosened bolt, abnormal noise will be generated and worst case, the tires may fall off."
So I shouldn't drive.
Okay. They've advised owners to stop using the vehicle immediately. Fortunately, there are only 2,700 vehicles in existence, with only 280 of them, a whole 280 units in North America. It's unknown if this affects the Subaru Solterra, since it's the exact same vehicle for more money.
It does.
So apparently it does. There you go. So Toyota. I got nothing else. Okay, next slide. Nissan Leaf pricing has been announced for 2023. So everybody, get out your order books or your checkbooks or whatever. If people still use those credit cards, whatever, PayPal. Nissan has announced the pricing for the refreshed, and this is their word, refreshed. That's why it's in quotes. 2023 Leaf in the US, and you can assume it's for Canada too. The price has increased because it's such good value to $400 more. So it's now $27,800 US. Over the 2022, they have streamlined the lineup to just 2 vehicles because it's Leaf. So now there's the S with 40 kilowatts and the SV with 60. Neither version has a range that even matches the Bolt EV, which is also cheaper. So the standard range Bolt is 416 kilometers versus the 2 Leafs that are either 240 or 341 kilometers range. And this is on top of the things the Bolt has that the Leaf doesn't, i.e. the Leaf still is CHAdeMO for some reason. It's still super slow charging, which I guess the Bolt is 50 kilowatts or whatever, same difference. But at least the Bolt uses CCS, which is everywhere. The Leaf still does not have a liquid cooled battery or even actively thermally managed. So you should read the Leaf forum sometimes if you want to laugh about road trips. 500 kilometers is a challenge. No joke. And so friends don't let friends buy new Leafs. Used vehicles, they're great. But anyway, next slide, please.
Is it still a vehicle with grid though?
No, because Canada doesn't have that ability. So Japan, if you live in Japan and you spend like $8,000 on a special CHAdeMO thingy for your house, then yes, you can do vehicle to grid. But no, in Canada.
There's people who,
Yeah.
regarding it and.
They're playing with it, but yeah, whatever. It's not a real thing.
But it's
Must,
not like your,
no,
your.
no, it's not like a $300 dongle that you just plug into the charge port. No. It's a dongle, whatever. Musk confirms the Cybertruck has been finalized. So it's fully locked, this is Musk speak for it's ready. The original concept design was missing a few things to make it a proper truck, which probably includes airbags too. But the new design, the finalized lock design, now has a windshield wiper, so that's fun. Rear wheel steering, which could be useful for trailers and whatnot. And it's it's a giant truck, so it's probably helpful. And side mirrors, because seeing behind you is important. They also report, Inside EVs reported that the interior is similar to Model S and X, but a bit more angular, as you would kind of expect for like a man truck, instead of the flowy Model S. And production will happen at Giga Texas, but it will not start for at least 12 months. And this is Musk saying 12 months, which you can add, it's like 50% to convert to Elon to real time. Is that
That's 2 to 3 times.
2x? So 2 years from now, you'll see the truck. Maybe it might start production. So Ford's laughing all the way to the bank because the F-150 is freaking dope. I saw one on Saturday, and that's like they nailed it. It's out of the park. Like that's.
GM already has the Hummer, and they're gonna make the Silverado.
Yeah.
The
So.
Ram's gonna launch before this.
So I mean, Musk is playing with his robots and whatever. Next, Giga Shanghai is being upgraded. So they were shut down because of COVID reasons and whatever, and why they didn't use that time to upgrade, I don't know. But they didn't. So now they're shutting down again. And they're reopening on July 7th, according to Bloomberg, to increase production capacity. So you know how we said the BZ4X had like 2,700 units in the whole world since sales started or whatever. Well, I mean, this one factory, and that's Model Y and Model 3. The Model Y is 11,000 right now. They're going to go up to 14,000 units per week. Model 3 is 5,500, and they're going up to 7,700 per week. And assuming it's all successful, that'll be 1 million vehicles just out of that one factory alone for Tesla. And this is not even counting Giga Berlin, Giga Texas, and the factory in Fremont.
Yeah,
So
Fremont is building at least 500,000.
So yeah, Fremont's over 500,000 now. So Tesla minimum will be at a run rate of 1.5 million if you ignore Texas and Berlin, which are still cranking out slowly. Berlin's the next slide, actually. So next slide, please. Giga Berlin, 1,000 vehicles per week. So I mean, it's something. It's better than nothing, and it's not quite as good as China. But China's been online for like a whole year now, so they're just coming up to speed. That's 52,000 units a year, which is pretty good. And their main bottleneck, interestingly, has not been the chip shortage or battery cells. It has been the paint shop. So I guess they'll figure that out. Giga Texas is limited by 4680 battery cells. They're still ramping up production of the cells, and before you can do the car, you have to do the cells, right? So Giga Berlin doesn't use those cells. They're using 2170s, which are a lot more prolific and widely available. The Berlin-produced cars displace cars that would have otherwise come from Shanghai. And I don't know if you can hear the fire truck, but there's a fire truck outside right now, so hang on. Hopefully it's not going to the parking garage. That's one of the cars. Anyway.
Your kid's not a Tesla.
Yeah, that's true. My car's not a Tesla. Won't catch fire.
Well,
Just joking. Anyway, so 1,000 cars per week, and they're still ramping. So this will be updated again. They'll be up to 11,000 eventually, just like China. And next slide, please. That's it. Hope it was fast. Thank you.
That's fine. So, okay, there was a comment I wanted to make, but I forgot. I'll try to remember. But anyways, so past events. So the clicker works now.
Yeah.
It works some of the time. Okay, so just go briefly over the events we had over the last month. We're getting busier, as you probably have noticed. So June 9th, we had the green drinks where a bunch of us talked about the EVX launch, right? So this was a sort of like a soft launch of EVX. So if you'd like to see that, the recording would be available on Spartan Alliance's YouTube channel. Cars and coffee. So we have two this month, and there's two pictures there of the Lightning, which I think was a highlight of the show on last Saturday, right? So very interesting vehicle. By the way, sorry.
EV6.
You had an EV6 also, and we had two Ioniq 5s, right? So really good selection of vehicles. So very interesting. I spoke to another fire truck. I think they're going in circles or something. So I spoke to a dealer in Shawville, and if anybody knows Shawville, it's a very small city. Bill knows Shawville. So a very small city with a very small dealer, and they had a Mach E, and so I stopped to see if it was sold, because if it wasn't sold, I would have probably bought it. But it was sold, and they have a whole bunch of people on the waiting list. But the interesting thing they told me is that this is a small dealership in Shawville. They have 94 F-150 Lightning sold. Okay, they delivered 4 of them. They've got 94 sold. So this is, for those of you who know Shawville, it's really redneck country where, people are probably happy to support Alberta until they have to pay the pump price, I guess. But so in Shawville, in a relatively, very conservative area of our country, we're seeing lots of people adopt the Ford F-150 Lightning. So it's very, very encouraging. So I'm expecting that Ford, I'm sure they know about this, so they will continue on ramping production, I would hope. Okay, so other past events. So it seems like it was a long time ago, but we did the Blackburn Fun Fair, June 3rd to 5th. And the high. ABBA. Oh. No. I've been teasing Mike about this. So anyways, we had a 3-day event, lots of interesting discussions with lots of people. One of the lessons we learned is not to schedule test drives or actually events on Saturday nights for a bunch of reasons. People tend to want to be with family at that time, and we actually saw a lull in people coming to see us before dinner on the Saturday. So, but anyways, it worked out quite well. That's a picture at the top there. You see Sam's car and a bunch of other cars in the lawn there. Sorry?
A couple souls, the old version, the new one.
Yep.
And just about every car, I think, or if not every car, except the ghetto Leaf.
My ghetto sled.
We had the red Leaf there too.
Yeah, it's
but
right
it
there in the
wasn't-
picture. It's
but
my
it
ghetto
wasn't-
sled.
Yeah, but there was another red. There's another red Leaf that was at the other end, but
Oh,
it
yeah.
wasn't part. It wasn't part of our volunteers. So
No.
just parked there. But every car in there except the old Leaf had at least one test ride. So very impressive. We had 7 different models, so it went quite well. The second picture there, that's the Tuesday night at June 14th at the Nepean Sportsplex. So you see an idea of the setup there, and then the last picture there is the official launch we did on June 20th. So we had 6 different models on June 20th, and so it was a very interesting launch. So that's it for the events this month. And what's upcoming? Lots of stuff upcoming, and I won't necessarily have them in the chronological order. You'll see why, because I have Cars and Coffee separate from the rest of the stuff. So this next month we're going to be doing the there he is. We're doing the meeting here next month, right? And like I said earlier, there are refreshments available here. It's nice to see people face to face. So if you're inclined to come, please come and join us here. There is a bus, actually a train that
The LRT.
the LRT, yeah, that would drop you off just a couple of blocks away. So if it's working, and it is working right now. So anyway, so July 25th, we'll do it here again. And there we go. So other events, actually Mike is again going to be at Green Drinks. And he'll be talking about resilience in the face of things like storms. So he'll be
You have to
talking.
write that.
So he'll be talking about his Ioniq 5 and how it powered his house for 2 days while he had no power, and then he went to his
In-laws.
his in-laws, and powered their house for another week or so, right? So and Art, you guys probably know Art. Art might actually be online. I'm not sure if he is, but
Yes.
Art, he is. Okay, so Art will be talking about his setup at home and how he survived the storm without any problem and actually provided power to neighbors. And David Long, I don't know what he'll be talking about, but I'm sure it'll be about the same subject, but I don't know his particular story. So anyways, if you're interested, I encourage you to sign up, and it's free, right? And participate. So next events are the Cars and Coffees. We have lots this week. We have 5
This month.
this month. So
The 30th is canceled,
30th is canceled,
I think.
you think?
Let me check.
Okay, we'll double check that. So so we're going to be going throughout the city, and again, for those who may remember.
Yeah, it's canceled. I'm not going to be in Ottawa. I'm going to be in Quebec City.
Okay, so the 30th is canceled, so forget about that one, but the other 4 are going to happen. Great, that's at least one less event we have this month.
So,
Anyways, so we are continuing trying to go across the city, right? And the idea here is we're going to have events close to where we're going to have the Tuesday night.
I sent you a new slide.
Hey?
So the July 2nd is now at the Starbucks in Carleton Place, since the Owl Cafe street is under construction. I sent you a whole slide about this.
I didn't see it, sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
I updated it. So anyway, so next week, don't go to the Owl Cafe on Bridge Street, because Bridge Street is torn up.
Okay.
Go
So-
to the Starbucks.
So the
right?
Facebook event reflects that?
Yes.
So I'll change it then on our EVCO, on the EVCO website, it still
Okay.
says this thing, okay?
Okay.
So we'll change it. But the idea again is to, follow the, precede the Tuesday night events, because
Yeah.
at these events, we're not doing test drives. But if anybody's in, I can invite them to a local event the week after. So, so that's the Cars and Coffees. And after that, so I already mentioned that I'm talking at KCOR, so that's the Canadian Association of Club of Rome, and we'll be talking about EVs and storing green energy in EV batteries. Very similar to what Dev talked about. I'm going to be talking about the numbers for Ontario there and how it would be crazy for us not to take advantage of the large amount of battery storage we'll have in EVs, instead of doing like has happened in other locations where they have purpose-built batteries that are used just for buffers, really for green energy, right? So the idea is to use an investment we're already making and leverage that instead. July 1st on Petrie Island will be there. Actually, so just talked to someone earlier today on this during dinner, actually. The actual event starts at 11, okay, not 9. So, and lasts until 5. Now, we're probably going to set up at least at 10, if not 10, okay, Craig?
That would be another hour's sleep. That would be wonderful.
Perfect. Okay, so we'll set up around 10, and what we want to do is have about 4 cars that will be on the display with us, and then we'll have a few. We have space for 3 other cars that we'll have parking spaces for 3 other cars. So there's a number of people who have already signed up. So we're still looking for a few more. We'd like to bring one of the Camino Kia Niros to the event. So anyways, look for, I'll probably send an email about this to remind people to make sure we're all on the same page. If you want to stay longer, okay, so Petrie Island has a whole program of entertainment available that night for Canada Day, including fireworks. So if you want to stay, you're more than welcome to stay. If you have a car though that is in the parking there or in the display that we have, you won't be able to move it between 6:30 and about 11:30 or so. Okay, so if you want to see the fireworks, by all means, stay and swim and do whatever you want to do. partake in the other activities, you're more than welcome to do that. There is a lot of stuff on the schedule for the Petrie Island. So, bring your family if you want to. They could swim, they could play in the bouncy castle.
We may have an EV6.
You may have an EV6. Okay,
You
cool.
don't swim at Petrie Island.
Hey, now you do.
It's the water treatment plant just before. Yeah, the water's treated.
It's not a problem since they've done anyways, that's a whole other topic.
Okay.
The water is fine at Petrie. You take my word for it.
Just don't drink it.
Something. Well, you wouldn't drink the water anyways, right? But anyways, so July 14th, I already mentioned that Green Drinks, Mike is going to be talking about his car and what he did.
Q.
Eh?
Now Nick with a Q.
Oh, shoot, at least I didn't say ironic, right?
It's the autocorrect. That's what it wants to.
It's just jealousy.
autocorrect.
It's all.
That must be it. That must be it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally just jealous.
Yeah. Mike thinks I'm jealous of his car. Anyways, so Tuesday night events, we have 4 that are on the agenda. So July 5th, Orleans Library, this will be following Petrie Island, right? So
Yeah.
Petrie Island, we're not doing test drives, but we'll be sending up people for test drives on July 5th at Orleans Library, okay? And we could potentially, this here, Wilfrid Laurier, July 26th,
That's all it means. Yeah.
is going to be in Orleans somewhere, probably at Wilfrid Laurier High School. We're not absolutely sure. So we may sign up people for the 26th also. So for those of you who would like to volunteer for the 5th of July, please go indicate it in the spreadsheet, because the spreadsheet is what EnviroCenter uses to set up the bookings in the systems, and they will be setting bookings in advance. There's already bookings for myself
fully
and
booked.
you. You're fully booked already?
Yeah.
I didn't even get one.
Yeah, I'm fully
I'm jealous.
on the 5th. Yeah.
I'm jealous.
How do you not have a booking and I have a booking?
I don't have any booking.
I have 8.
0. So
Check to make sure you're in there.
I'm in there. No, but that's
Pity
amazing.
booking.
That's amazing if there's that many. If you're available, it'd be great to be able to do more.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, those are my bookings.
Yeah, cool.
Can I see?
Good. Good. So I guess we don't have to talk about the bookings that much on that. But anyways, bottom line is we'll be able to talk to people on Petrie Island about cars and all that. And July 5th is when we'll do test drives, and the other ones. So if we don't have enough slots on July 5th, maybe we do July 26th instead and set up that way,
Did you
right?
mention the tying the cars and coffee, or should I?
The what, sorry? I think I already did, right? So the cars
So,
and coffee.
Yeah, the way the cars and coffee is working now is I've harmonized it to be ahead of the test drive Tuesdays. So you'll notice if you're astute and you look at the cars and coffee schedule, the one before July 12th is in Stittsville, and then the other one is wherever Beaverbrook is, I forget.
That's in Canada.
Canada. So they will be coordinated from now on as long as we can.
So again, the idea with the cards that you'll get, right, that Mike has, and I don't know where
They're
I put them in my other pocket, but with those, you will be able to direct people to
Yeah.
EVX.
But also, like, bring your friends to Cars and Coffee. It's super chill.
Yeah,
Like
Yeah.
your non-EV friends.
yeah. Anybody who wants to come is welcome, right? Hey, when people don't have friends.
If you're like
this,
Sam and you don't have
if you're like
friends,
Will, you don't have friends?
make friends. Go on Tinder.
I don't need friends.
You don't need friends.
He did see Grinder.
Anyways, Petrie Island, just to mention where exactly it'll be. So Petrie Island's a very nice place. If you haven't been, very nice beach. We're going to be in that red circle there. Okay. So again, no test drives. We're going to be doing bookings for future events. Oops. Okay. It's going to probably, yeah. Okay, great. Okay. Oops. Okay. I think I'm okay there. So I want to talk about some events that are fairly far in the future, okay? So these are confirmed. So the ones you saw in July are all confirmed. And we don't have any actually confirmed yet in August. We're going to have some. Not yet, but in September, we have our usual Sustainability Showcase and Sustainability Fair and EV Showcase. I got that wrong. September 24th. The time has changed again, okay? So Nick wanted to do it at from 12 to 7 the last
Football
game
games, yeah.
because there's a football game at 7, and this would allow us to just have people from the football game go through the display and ask questions and all that. But Lansdowne Park has said, no, we'd like you to finish by 4. So we'll finish by 4. We'll start a bit earlier at 10 a.m. So we'll be looking for a bunch of people to do test drives and also to have static display, okay? Like usual, we'll want to have lots of cars there. Test drives, we're looking for somewhere around 6 to 8 cars, something of the sort, okay? At the same time, once again, at the same time, we're having the Ottawa Electric Auto Show. So you may have seen some publicity already. I've seen some on Facebook and a few other places. They're already starting to get the excitement going about this show. So it's a 3-day show. The EVCO, Association des véhicules électriques du Québec, will actually be doing test drives at the same time as we're doing ours in Gatineau. Okay, they're going to have 30 vehicles doing test drives for the 3 days. Okay, so it's going to be an event similar to what was done in Montreal not too long ago and what happened in Saint-Hyacinthe last year. And a few of us went to Saint-Hyacinthe. Nicolas, now you went also, Craig, right?
And Robert.
And Robert. So yeah, that's right. And we so there was a record of 750 EVs in a parade, I guess they call it. So very interesting event. The Saint-Hyacinthe event, the promoter is the same promoter as the Gatineau event. Okay, and I'm helping him to book some dealers for Gatineau, but most of the space is already used. There'll be space downstairs for 30 avec volunteers with their cars to do test drives. We're going to have some dealers with test drive cars also. But anyways, it should be a very good event. We're expecting 30,000 plus visitors, and they're going to be doing a lot of publicity on the Ontario side to attract people from Ontario. And as you know, EVs are like the subject of the day almost every day these days, certainly for me, but that's anyways. Lots of people are talking about EVs because of gas price in particular. So we're expecting a huge crowd to show up. So we'll be those who are interested in participating as much as they can is September 23rd, the Friday. I'm going to be in Gatineau, and actually I have some other stuff to do there. But anyways, the 24th, I'm not too sure where I'm going to be. I'm probably going to be in Gatineau still, but we'll want to have a lot of our people in Ottawa to support Nick and SmartNet Alliance, who've been working with us for how many years now? 5, 6, 7 years to do the EV showcase. So we certainly want to support him, and we're going to work with him to try to get an e-bus there and a few other things. So we're going to try to make that show even better than it was last time. You remember last time when we had a horrendous weather, right? Yes. Hopefully we get better weather, but it still turned out fairly well even with the weather. So for Outaouais though, we're going to be looking for 4 Teslas. Okay, so I've committed us, EVCO, probably me, but anyway, to provide 4 Teslas, one of each model. And we're going to put them, the S first.
Can you find the X?
No, we need to find an X.
Brandon has an X.
Okay, well, let's talk after. It's the hardest one to find, yeah. So we'd like to get the S. We'd like to get a more recent model than mine, right? 2013 is pretty old. Maybe Gerard. Well, I'm sure we could. There's a lot of people who have some. It'd be great if we could get a plaid, right? And we'll want a 3 and a Y. So
you have to talk after this.
Okay, so we have time to do that, right? But we're committed to having 4 Teslas there. We are so we'll need volunteers for the Teslas in particular, especially on the 23rd and 25th. The 24th we want to be at Lansdowne Park mostly, right? But we'll have other things like the e-boat here. If the and I'm talking to him tomorrow actually, the guy. I know people who own Orleans Boat World in Orleans, and they have a sister dealership in L'Ange Gardien, and I'm talking to them tomorrow. They're going to bring in an e-boat, okay, so an electric pontoon of some sort.
Can that tow?
Can that tow?
Like an electric pontoon, is it tow? It's like
no, I can't tow anything at all except maybe another pontoon. We'll see later.
Someone's stranded at the other end of the lake.
Yeah. Anyways, so it might be my own.
Stranded and 17 people who want to help them. I felt bad for the little sewing machine mode. So I let him tow me.
So anyways, it may be my boat that's in the show because they're having trouble getting boats, period. So they may not have a boat for the show, but one way or another, we're gonna have a boat there. They're gonna have hybrid ATVs. So the ATVs are getting the brand Segway, which I don't think is related to the Segway thing there. I think it's a separate thing, but they have hybrids are introducing shortly that have they're plug-in hybrids that have a range of apparently 16 kilometers, which for an ATV is fantastic, right? Because most of the use that people like Bill would do at the cottage would fit really easily within 16 kilometers. And if you're going to do a trip outside, out in the boonies in the forest, there's going to be a gas engine that will produce electricity afterwards. So it should be very popular. So they'll have some of those at the show, right? Anything else I need to mention here? I think that's it. So anyways, we'd like to, if you're interested in signing up for those, you can sign up right now. Just put it in the spreadsheet. We'll be happy to have you there with us. So other upcoming events that are unconfirmed at this point. So there's question of our being at the Navan Fair, the Capital Fair also, which is it's actually a week long, including 2 weekends fair. But we would probably be there only the 2 weekends. We may have a presence during the week, but it would probably be just talking about EVs, not doing test drives, right? So the most of the work would be during the weekends. Oops, I've got some stuff that shouldn't be in there, but National Capital Auto Show. I checked yesterday again their website, and they still haven't announced a date, so I don't think it's going to happen. But anyways, we are going to with EnviroCenter. We should be having other events pop up. So we talked earlier about Canada Post. Canada Post, we're probably going to do an event there, assuming we agree, and I would assume they agree. As part of the project, we have the EVX project. We have a commitment for 5 corporate events. That would be an awesome one to have, right? So others that we suggested is something with Amazon, whether and could probably save a huge bundle of money by going electric, right? And then we have a few others in mind that will Transport Canada wants to do an event with us. I can't remember the other ones, but they're still, EnviroCenter is working on that, and they're going to be coordinating all that stuff, okay? Okay, so, we're close to the end, okay. So reminder, we have a YouTube channel, right? So if you want to see our previous meetings, Bill, which are always very fascinating. But
Put them on time and a half.
You can watch it in time and a half or twice the time if you find I speak too slowly or something. We put all our meetings there. We have a bit of catching up to you, but we're going to get there.
On it.
And it takes a while. It takes a lot of time to do it, but so we got a bunch of stuff in there, and we are always looking for more subscribers because with if you know anything about YouTube, subscribers and likes are very important. So if you want our channel to show up, we want subscribers and likes. Okay, so so Bill, this is for you. So on the weekend, I was on the lake puttering around with my electric pontoon boat. And there was this guy faking that he ran out of gas or something with a damsel on his boat.
Too much. Didn't want to get pulled over.
$2 a liter. I take any free ride.
So anyways, I pulled him almost across the whole lake.
3 miles.
Right?
Yeah.
3 miles, huh?
It's about 3 miles, yeah.
Anyways, when I got back there, so I went from my cottage, which is at one end of the lake. This is the other end of the lake. Came back, I still had 50% charge left.
Nice.
Okay.
It's a very small lake.
No, it's pretty big. It's pretty big.
About 7.
It's really a pond.
7 kilometers or
It's
so?
well 3.5 miles.
Yeah,
3.5 miles, whatever that is.
It's a puddle.
So it's a big puddle. It's not a puny lake, but not a huge lake. Anyways, so that was the excitement for the weekend. But I guess that's it. So.